Hello, and welcome to this Express Publishing webinar. In this video, we're going to be talking to you about the Career Paths series by Express Publishing. We're going to be looking at the structure of the course, the key features and the components, and how they can be of use to you inside your classroom. Now, Career Paths is a series of books that has been designed especially for students in vocational colleges or professionals to help them to develop both their linguistic competence skills and also the skills that they need, whatever kind of chosen profession they're going to be going into. And these kinds of books have been designed in such a way that they can help support the students through any kind of formal training, vocational colleges, which I mentioned, or even students that are professionals already in work and in employment. Now, what's special about our Career Path series is that we have so much to offer in terms of titles. You can see here we have over 100 different vocations and professional fields available from Career Paths, some of which you can see on the presentation slide in front of you. Titles such as fishing, seafood industry, mining, natural gas, business correspondence, for example. We have a wide range of different titles available to engage different students of different professions and vocations. Here is a more complete list of the different titles that we offer. So everything from accounting through agricultural engineering to architecture. We have, of course, our beauty salon title, which is actually an award-winning title, business English and call centers. We also have courses for, of course, mechanics, in the medical industry, doctors and nurses, medical equipment repair, merchant navy, even things like sports and the World Cup and worldwide sports events. So you can see here just the range of different titles that we have available for English for specific purposes. And these are all different titles that perhaps your students can engage with and use to become successful in whatever kind of vocational field or professional field they're going to go into after education. Now, let's have a look at some of the latest releases of Career Paths. As I mentioned, this is a series that we're very proud of at Express Publishing, and we are always trying to add to this series. So these are some of the latest releases that have come out from our ESP range. So we're looking at cinematography, ESP for travel agents, fast food, industrial assembly, industrial safety, and also geology. Now, what we also do is we also always inform through our website, through our social media, the other titles that become available. So as more titles become available, we shall inform you of any new releases. And this is just to show you that we are always trying to add to this wonderful series and expand our ESP range for our learners' needs. So now let's have a look a little bit at the structure of Career Paths. Okay, what you can see in front of you are two different Career Paths books, one for mechanical engineering, the other for environmental engineering. And each book from Career Paths, no matter which title it is, contains 3 books in one. You can see here, Mechanical Engineering, Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3. All of these books are contained within the one title. Okay, this essentially splits each title into a graded kind of progression for the learners. Book 1 normally is around an A2 level, Book 2 is B1, and Book 3 is around B1 plus. Okay, and you can see the same for environmental engineering as well. So when you acquire a copy of mechanical engineering, you will acquire all 3 books in one, and this provides the learners with some adequate level progression in terms of the topics covered, also in terms of the carrier texts that they will be introduced to. The carrier texts, I mean the listenings and the reading texts that they will encounter in each lesson. Now, when we talk about the 3 books, to go into a bit more detail here, each book contains 15 units inside of it. You can see here, book 1, 15 units plus glossary. Book 2 has 15 units with a glossary, and book 3 also has 15 units and a glossary. Each unit is essentially a lesson, and each lesson focuses around a specific topic from that vocational field. And here we can see again, more in terms of the progression, especially in terms of the topics for the learners. In book 1, we can see a lot of the topics are introductory. We're looking at unit 1, all about the software engineer and types of computers, accessories inside the computer. Okay, so a lot of introductions here to the various aspects of this vocational field. As we go into book 2, then we begin to expand a little bit on topics. We're looking at the traits of the software engineer, problem solving, software architecture, design consideration, different methods for design at the same time. And then as we go into book 3, we're looking at some more, let's say, challenging topics, more advanced areas of this vocation in terms of interface design, software reuse, software reliability, for example, software quality control. So here you can see a clear kind of progression in the topics that the learners will be introduced to at the same time in each book. And as I said, each unit is essentially a lesson, which we can recommend that you can complete in about an hour, okay? Depending, of course, on your teaching hours, depending on your syllabus and your curriculum, of course. What we can recommend is it takes about 45 hours to complete the Career Paths course. However, this can be 45 hours plus if you are also using the Express Digibook, which I will talk to you a bit about later as well. So plenty of content there, plenty of teaching content and progression for the learners as they move through the books. And again, I need to really stress this. This is the same structure for every single book of Career Paths. Okay, which is very easy for us and very easy for you as well, as the structure, once we see in one book, we're able to quite easily find our way through a different title from our ESP range. Now, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the methodology here that we have in Career Paths in terms of the specificity and authenticity of the materials. And I think this is a great example to show you from 3 different Career Paths courses, engineering, law, and hotels and catering. Okay, this is a lesson from each of these different vocational fields. Each lesson focuses on a specific communication goal. Okay, we want the learners to use the language for communication. So in engineering, in this lesson, we're going to be explaining a choice, a design choice, perhaps. In law, we're going to be stating an agreement. So maybe we're going over some papers, some legal documentation, and some kind of correspondence with a customer or with a client, for example. And in hotels and catering, making a correction. This could be maybe amending a booking, for example. So 3 very different communicative goals that are going to be expressed through an email. So the students are going to be looking at emails, maybe studying how to write an email, but for a very, very specific communication purpose, okay, that they would use in their vocational field. So it's very specific to their vocation. It's something that they will need to use in a very specific situation in their professional field. And to help them do that, we're also going to explore some very specific vocabulary. You can see here a lot of industry-specific vocabulary that's going to be introduced in each lesson for the engineer, for law, and for hotels and catering as well. So we're really focusing on specificity in terms of the language that's being used. And of course, authenticity, getting students to use language in very real situations that they will need to use language whenever they go into their chosen field or profession. They're going to have conversations that they are very likely to have in their professional field. They're going to read texts that they're very likely to read in their professional field. And this is what we include throughout career paths to give students a very holistic learning process, give them all the tools and language and experience that they need inside the classroom so that they can apply this outside when they leave. Okay, so I think this is a nice example to show you here of really the depth that you have in each career paths book. So now let's have a look a little bit more closely at the structure and methodology of the books themselves. For this, I'm going to go into career paths engineering. Okay, and we're going to have a look at a lesson together. So I've opened up the book, and here we have the contents pages for book 1. And as we can see, we have our 15 lessons here. And this is the scope and sequence pages. So we have a lot of information about what kind of topic we're going to be studying in each lesson, the reading context. So what kind of text the students are going to be introduced to, what kind of topic-specific vocabulary we're going to be introducing in this lesson, and how we're actually going to use this vocabulary for communication, for functional language, maybe asking for directions, asking about purpose, talking about budgets, for example. You can see again very, very specific communication goals that we will need to achieve in each lesson. Now, the lesson that I'm going to show you today comes from lesson 4, and it's all about the tools that engineers use in their place of work. And as you can see, we're going to be looking at some very topic-specific vocabulary for the different tools, and we're going to be using language to describe the different uses of the tools. Of course, the engineers need to know what kind of tools they have in their toolkit. They also need to know how to use them properly. So this is the aim of our lesson today, to establish this with our learners. So when we open up our lesson, you can see here we're looking at lesson 4, all about tools. Each lesson is a double-page spread. Okay, and this is the same for every single book from Career Paths, and we're going to see some examples a bit later on. You can find in each lesson, which is the double-page spread, you have first of all an introduction to the vocabulary. This is normally done through some kind of visual aids, so some pictures that are labeled for the students to associate the new words with pictures. This is then normally followed by a reading text, and this is always an authentic reading text. It is a kind of text that the students are very likely to pick up or read in their place of work. And inside this reading text, apart from being a realistic text, it also has the vocabulary, and again in a contextualized way. The students get to see the vocabulary in an authentic way, in a contextualized way, and then this leads into some reading comprehension questions and some further exercises to help the learners to assimilate and practice the new vocabulary words. Each lesson is very heavy on topic-specific vocabulary, so we've included a number of different vocabulary tasks there to help the students to assimilate and learn the new words more effectively. As we move into the next part of the lesson, we can see here our focus switches more from an input kind of stage to output. So focusing more on productive skills. First of all, through a listening. Okay, we use the listening input. Again, an authentic conversation, an authentic dialogue between two people that the students are likely to have or likely to listen to in their place of work. And from this listening, the students will be developing their listening comprehension skills, of course, and at the same time, they're going to be seeing and hearing the language, the vocabulary in context again. We're also going to be working on things like pronunciation and intonation, and this listening then becomes a model or a template, an example for the speaking task that follows, because the students will then be preparing and delivering and practicing their own spoken dialogue that is very similar to the listening that they have been practicing previously. So each skill here is very heavily interlinked with each other. And as we finish each lesson, we always finish with a writing task where the students need to write about what they have been talking about in the previous exercise. So we have this clear kind of interlink between the skills. Each skill flows into the next one and helps the learners to learn, to practice, to produce the language in real ways, in authentic ways, and in ways that are going to really help them when they go into their professional field and equip them with the skills that they need. Okay, this was just a very brief look at the lesson and how it's put together and why we've arranged the lesson in this way. And as I said, this is something you can find in every single title from Career Paths, the same methodology, the same integration between all 4 skills in every single lesson, the introduction of the vocabulary and its contextualization through the texts and through the listenings, and through the speakings and the writings. The students get to use this kind of language and functional language in realistic ways for communication. So let's have a look at in a little bit more detail the elements of this lesson. The focus on the topic-specific vocabulary, as I mentioned before. So we have the visual presentation of the new vocabulary words that are labeled. We also have get ready sections or warm-up sections, essentially, that get the students to discuss the new vocabulary words and think about them at the same time. So what kind of jobs do these different tools do? Why is it important to have the right tools? These are, of course, very important questions for engineers to consider. It also gives the students the chance to participate actively in the lesson rather than just be passively absorbing and reading the vocabulary words. It gets them to interact very early on in the lesson, perhaps even share some expertise with others. You may have classes with students that may already be experts in the field, and they may be needing this course to develop their English skills, for example. So these kinds of activities get students or give students the opportunity to interact with the new vocabulary words, discuss them, perhaps share some expertise, and get them to warm up essentially to the topic and to the vocabulary, even from the very first exercise of the lesson. Then we can look more clearly now at the reading comprehension. So here we have the text in front of us. It's a text about instructions for lamp repair. So how to repair things, what kind of tools you need to use, and what to do with them, essentially. And again, this is an example of an authentic text. This is something that our engineers are very likely to pick up in their place of work. And it's something that can help us to contextualize the vocabulary words. And of course, through the reading comprehension, we're also helping the learners to develop their reading skills at the same time. And of course, in career paths, every reading text and listening text is of course recorded to help the students listen to the words for pronunciation, intonation, and again, help them with their overall learning.
Instructions for lamp repair. Number 1. Secure the appliance in a vise to hold the lamp in place and free your hands. Number 2. Remove screws from the covering plate with a screwdriver or an electric drill. Remove the plate to reveal the wiring inside. Number 3. Locate the wiring causing the bad connection. Using pliers, clip the faulty connection. Number 4. Strip the insulation from the faulty wire with a wire stripper. And number 5. Using the soldering.
So I think you get the idea here. Just to play you a quick snippet of the audio. Everything is recorded again for the students, just to give them this extra exposure to the language in use. And this is something that you can use throughout the lessons. The audio CDs, the class CDs that accompany the course, are downloadable from our teachers resource site, which I will also talk to you a little bit about later. And this is something that you can use actively inside your class throughout each lesson. So moving on, after the reading text, the students then complete some vocabulary assimilation tasks. Here we're looking at perhaps some tasks that get students to define the words, to find opposites to the words, maybe choose synonyms, for example, or perhaps even in some lessons categorize new words into different fields, for example. All of these different tasks help the learners to assimilate the vocabulary, to help them develop also their learning skills at the same time. I mentioned before that each lesson is very heavily vocabulary focused. So these kinds of tasks help the learners to associate these new vocabulary words a lot easier in perhaps different styles that can benefit and suit the learners in different ways. Okay, so these are the kinds of tasks that we can find after the reading text that help the learners with the vocabulary assimilation and help them to associate these new vocabulary words more easily. Then we move into the listening. As I mentioned before, the listening texts are authentic dialogues, authentic communication, texts, conversations between employees, between staff, between customers, that the students can really study in terms of the contextualization of the language, in terms of the use of the language, and of course the pronunciation and intonation. And of course, in addition to all of this, we have the listening comprehension tasks as well for extra practice. So let's have a listen to the listening text itself, just to have an idea of what the students will be listening to inside the classroom.
Hello, ma'am. Can I help you find anything?
Yes, I'm looking for a soldering iron.
Okay. We have a few different models. Can I ask what you'll be using it for?
I need to repair some wiring.
Well, we have the Lanford 250 or the Hilldale 400.
Okay, what's the difference?
The Lanford 250 is for basic wiring. The Hilldale 400 is more for small circuits.
I think I'll take the Lanford.
Okay, so in this dialogue, we saw an engineer talking to the owner of a warehouse. They want to get the tools that they need, and they're explaining essentially what kind of tools they need to get the job done. They need to get a specific job done. So this is what the learners will be introduced to. And again, it's putting a lot of the vocabulary, a lot of the ideas of the lesson into a realistic and authentic context. And the students are able to see a realistic conversation, which they are very likely to have in their place of work. So this is something that we can really spend some time on with the students to give them this authentic experience, this authentic practice of the language as they will use it when they go into their professional field. So this is what I really wanted to show you here, especially in terms of the authentic listening texts. Each lesson really gives the students a window to the real world and gets them to practice and use the language for real life communication, of course, in their specific vocational context.
Hello, ma'am.
So this then leads into an authentic speaking text. Following the listening itself, the students then have the opportunity to act out the different roles in the listening and perhaps change the situation slightly. Of course, we also introduce useful language and functional language to help the learners to do this. And the learners, as you can see, they take on the different roles. Student A, you are a hardware store owner. Ask student B questions to find out about what kinds of tools are needed, the choices available and the use of each tool. And student B, you are an engineer. Talk to student A about which one to buy. So it's a very similar dialogue. You have the model, the template of the listening before. The students have this communication model, and they can use this to adapt and deliver, perform, practice their own kind of dialogue. And this is something that they can also use for further practice, and again, in a real life, authentic situation. And of course, this then flows into a writing task when students have completed the speaking. A very logical thing to happen for the engineer, having discussed what kind of tools they're going to need, how they're going to use them, is to make some notes about it, what kind of tools they're going to use for a specific job. what kind of purpose the tools have, and maybe any other kind of notes they may need to make, and what they're going to select for this job. This is a very logical process that would happen after the dialogue, and this is something that we've included in this lesson for writing practice for the engineers. Now, perhaps the engineers may not have to write a lot on a daily basis. However, what writing they do need to actually accomplish and do in the lesson, we have accommodated for that in each lesson. So even things like writing notes about the tools that are needed, this is an important process for engineers, and this is something that we offer practice in. And again, adding this element of authenticity to the lesson, it's something that follows the speaking. So having talked with the owner, having discussed the tools and the different purposes, the engineer will then make their notes before they go to carry out whatever kind of job they're going to do, now having the correct tools and knowing how they're going to use them for this job. So this is what I really wanted to show you in this lesson, how we approach different aspects of the lesson in terms of the vocabulary, the different skills through the reading, the listening, the speaking, and the writing. I also wanted to show you how we help the learners to associate the brand new vocabulary words, how they are contextualized, and at the same time, how all of these skills are interlinked and provide the learners with real, authentic practice in different situations inside every single lesson. And this is something that you're going to find in every single lesson from every single title from Career Paths, this same methodology and approach to help the learners to develop the skills that they need. At the back of the books, you can also find the glossary sections. I have mentioned this already through the contents pages. It's also noted that there is a glossary section at the back of the book. The glossary section contains all of the target vocabulary, all of the topic-specific vocabulary that is introduced is arranged there in alphabetical order. You also have the part of speech. You also have some kind of a definition there as well that really helps the learners, again, in terms of the vocabulary assimilation as a reference point for the students. As the lessons are very vocabulary focused, we have this extra tool at the back, this extra feature at the back of the books to help the learners with the vocabulary. Now, let's have a look at the supporting material for the teacher. We focus a lot there on the student's book, and we are going to return to it in a few moments' time. I'd like to also talk to you a little bit about the teacher's guide that accompanies the Career Paths books. Each teacher's guide, again, is the same. It follows the same structure, and it's been designed in a way to really help the teachers of Career Paths. Quite often, ESP teachers, we are not experts in this field. We are perhaps not expert engineers. We're not expert accountants, but we may find ourselves teaching a class of ESP learners, accountancy or engineering, for example. Now, our teachers' books have been designed in such a way to support teachers at every step in the lesson, to give them what they need to help them complete their lesson objectives, giving them step-by-step guides, suggested answers, and different techniques and strategies to help the learners engage in the lesson, and also in a way that the teacher can be able to facilitate and help the students throughout every stage of the lesson. So very clearly indicated in each lesson, we have, of course, the lesson objectives. We have before you start sections, which are essentially warm-up sections. So these sections perhaps get students to brainstorm some ideas to introduce the topic gradually on the board, for example, and have some kind of a discussion, which can be, again, very interactive for the students and involve them more in the lesson and not have such a teacher-focused lesson, for example. As we move through the lesson, we have suggested answers. So whenever we have a discussion task or a spoken task, we have suggested answers for the teacher, what the students are likely to talk about, or what are some ideas the students can talk about. This can be equally beneficial for the teachers and for the students. If the teacher, of course, is not an expert, if they need some ideas, you have the suggested answers there. And if the students are perhaps lacking confidence or not able to talk about certain topics very much, then the teacher, of course, will have the suggested answers there to help them to perhaps suggest some ideas or point the students in the right direction. As we move on, we also have, of course, the audio scripts. So when we have the listenings, we also have, of course, the audio scripts for the teacher's reference, of course. And a very useful tool here, we have the mind maps. When it comes to the dialogues, when it comes to the speaking tasks, when the students are preparing their speaking tasks, the teachers here have several pointers inside the teacher's book that help them to essentially elicit from the students the vocabulary, the functional language, and help the students to put together their dialogue if they need some extra help with their speaking and extra support. This kind of mind map that you can see highlighted here is something that the teacher can actually do on the board. They can write this up on the board and they can elicit from the students the different points. So, for example, student A asks student B if he or she needs help. Student B responds and they need to name the tool that they need. Then student A needs to respond. And then we see the conversation progress this way. This is a great way to elicit from the students the language, the vocabulary, and again, support them if they need some extra help, especially with the spoken task. All of this is included inside the teacher's guides for all of the different titles. And it, again, gives you different options, it gives you flexibility, and it gives you that extra level of support to help you to really engage with your students inside the classroom. And of course, for writings, again, we have suggested answers. So whenever it comes to a writing task, there is a suggested answer there for the teacher, again, to help the students or to help the teacher in terms of ideas, in terms of the points that need to be included, for example. And of course, each lesson also has a ending the class or rounding up, some kind of extension activity that is suggested to the teacher, a way to finish the class through some kind of interactive exercise or a game, for example, to recap vocabulary and get the students, again, actively participating inside the lesson. Okay, so from start to finish throughout the entire lesson, you have everything that you need to accomplish your learning objectives, step-by-step instructions on how to work through the different exercises, suggested answers, and of course the extra supporting materials such as the mind maps and the warm-up activities and the extension tasks as well. So as teachers of career paths, you are going to be fully supported throughout each lesson with your teacher's guide. So let's have a look at a few more examples here from other career paths titles. Here we have journalism. You can see it's the same structure. Look at the vocabulary first. This time we're looking at an email as our text, and we're going on to look at the vocabulary through a listening. Here we have an employee and an editor, a conversation between these people inside the office. This goes on to a speaking and then a writing. Use the conversation from task 8 to fill out the memo to newspaper staff. So in each lesson, doesn't matter which vocational field it is, we're following the same approach, the introduction of the vocabulary, the integration of the 4 skills, and of course, authenticity. The students will be looking at an email. They're going to be doing a conversation that is very likely to happen in their place of work. And then they're going to also be practicing this, and they're going to be then writing a memo for their staff. These are all tasks that they're going to be required to do in their place of work. We can see the same here for food service industries. Here we're looking at sanitation, so how to prepare food correctly, how to ensure that the kitchen is up to standard in terms of hygiene, for example. In terms of business English, using or how to address people from different cultures. So social norms in the business context, how to respect different people's cultures, for example, how to be polite, how to be professional, for example. In terms of computing, we're looking at Macs and PCs here. And again, following the same structure, looking at the vocabulary first, and then going into our skills and our productive skills towards the end of the lesson. And here we have also an art and design lesson. Here we're looking at photography, and again, the same structure, the conversation here between a photographer and an assistant, so authentic dialogues again that are practiced, and then looking at a realistic kind of writing towards the end of the lesson as well. So those are just a few examples of the different titles that we offer and the methodology and approaches that we follow in each book. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have over 100 titles available. So each title is going to follow a very sound and holistic approach to help the learners gain not just language proficiency, but also the experience and practice that they need for their professional and chosen vocation. So now we're going to look at, in the final part of this webinar presentation today, we're going to look at the components available for our Career Paths series. I mentioned already, and we've seen in a lot of detail, the student's book. Okay, the student's book for Career Paths are accompanied by the Express Digibooks application. Okay, this is a code, an access code that is found inside the first page of the book. And this access code, when redeemed on our Express Digibooks platform, gives the users access, online and offline access to the student's book through our platform. It allows them to complete exercises and receive instant feedback. It contains all of the audio material from the course at the same time, so they can complete the listenings, for example. And at the same time, it also includes a number of different video activities, which I'm going to talk to you about in a little while. And I'm also going to show you a bit more the platform as well. We also have, of course, the teacher's guide, which I have shown you quite extensively as well today. This accompanies the course for every single title. And we also have the class audio CDs, which I mentioned earlier, can be downloaded from our Teachers Corner website. You can see on the presentation slide in front of you the website that you can visit in order to download the class audio CDs. Here is an example from journalism, the full components available. This is the same for every single title of Career Paths. Now, if you are a teacher of Career Paths, you can also acquire the teacher's packs. The teacher's pack contains inside the student's book with Digibook. So you can also use our platform to assign homework to your students to monitor their progress. It also contains a copy of the teacher's guide as well to help you to plan and structure your lessons. And you will also be able to go to Teachers Corner and download the audio for free from there as well. And of course, not forgetting that you have the audio included inside the Digibook at the same time. So a lot of different resources available, printed and digital, for the student and for the teacher as well of Career Paths. Now I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the Express Digibooks platform, because it is quite an integral part of Career Paths. It's something that accompanies the course. It's something that you can use to your advantage, either inside or outside the lesson, for synchronous and asynchronous learning. For example, here we're looking at some screenshots from the platform from our engineering book. You can see, and as I mentioned before, the Express Digibook app is available both online through the website, through the browser, and offline through the app that can be downloaded to your mobile phone, tablet, laptop, or computer. So you can use Express Digibooks anywhere, any place, and any time at the same time. And here you can see the book as it appears online. You have full access to the book. You have your contents pages on the left-hand side. You are able to navigate through the different exercises. And as you complete exercises, your learners can receive instant feedback on these exercises with the scores. They can check their answers and try again. They also have access to the Show Answers tool, which you can see in the top right corner, which is like the light bulb image there. And through the Show Answers tool, the students can also reveal the answers. Now, if you are a teacher, if you are a school using the platform, you can also disable the Show Answers tool for students to encourage them to try and work out the answers on their own as well. So you can use this either for self-study, or as a school, use the platform as an LMS system in which you can assign homework, track progress of your students. We're looking here at some examples of the listening exercises. Here we have a listening exercise, the same one actually that we looked at in the lesson of engineering. And what we can see here is we have the audio available. We have, of course, the instant feedback. And once the students have attempted to do the listening the first time, they also get access to the audio scripts. So again, a great tool there for extra help, support, and self-study on the platform. And as we go through the Digibook platform, the Digibook also includes a number of video exercises with comprehension questions for various lessons of the book itself. There are between 7 to 9 different video exercises in each title from Career Paths. The video exercises are documentary style videos that are very centered on the topic of that lesson. And they give the learners this extra exposure to the language, and they also get to see fellow professionals talking about their field, again in contextualized ways. And it's great for this kind of extra exposure and comprehension practice as well. So let's have a look at a very short snippet of this video.
Technology is changing the world all around us.
Okay, science and technology can help make our lives much more comfortable and interesting. But technology brings its own arguments as well. Where would we be without electricity? We all want a cheap source of electricity to run the machines we use and the lives we lead. But how should we generate our electricity? Through natural resources like wind and wave power? Or at a low cost from a nuclear power station?
This is Sizewell Nuclear Power Station on the east coast of England. Modern, high-tech and controlled entirely by computers, it's changed the way we generate electricity. Where there used to be noise, dirt and heavy metal, there's quiet, calm and row upon row of computer screens. Specialists keep around-the-clock.
Okay, so just to give you an idea there, so this is from a section on nuclear engineering from one of our Career Paths books here. And as you can see, the documentary style video introduces the learners to the topic. It's showing them around a nuclear power station, and at the same time, students get to see and hear professionals in the same field as them talk about the topics that they've been studying throughout that lesson. And each of these videos are also accompanied by some kind of comprehension questions for the learners to complete, to check their understanding, to help them to further develop their English skills. So this is what we can find throughout Career Paths. Again, in every single title from Career Paths, we have a number of video exercises with short documentary style videos, as I showed you before, complete with some kind of comprehension questions for extra practice for the students. These can be used outside of the class for homework, or they can also be used inside of the class if you want to expand your teaching hours and add some extra content to your lessons. So why choose Express Digibooks? As I mentioned before, that the platform can be used either for self-study or as a learning management system. When using the platform as a learning management system, the teachers, schools that are using it can easily assign homework with the click of a button to students. Students that are using the books as part of a school or even individually on their own have instant feedback on all exercises. Everyone involved is able to track progress effectively. All of the scores and visible attempts are stored within the platform, making it very easy for progress reports to be generated, to actually monitor and see how the students have been doing, either the teachers to do this or individual students to monitor their own progress, for example. And of course, it's a fully interactive learning experience. It's not just a PDF version of the book. There are a number of interactive tasks there that include, of course, the video and audio tasks at the same time. There's also a number of different features that incentivize learning and self-study through the instant feedback, through the show answers, for example. And of course, we also have our gamification feature on the platform, which adds game-like elements to the platform, so students can be rewarded for different activities that they perform on the platform as well, just giving them that extra level of engagement and motivation when using the platform. And of course, as I mentioned before, Express Digibooks can also be used either online or offline, and a perfect solution for distance learning, for asynchronous learning, for things like flipped classroom at the same time. If you want to engage your students in some kind of flipped learning, the Digibook is highly effective and flexible for your teaching needs. So as we finish the presentation, just to kind of recap again on career paths, the key features, what we've seen today, we have in each title of career paths, we have 3 books in one. Each title contains 45 units in total, so 15 units per book, so 45 units in total. In each lesson, as we saw through the examples, we have all 4 language skills integrated into that lesson. We have a number of authentic reading texts and listening texts that help the students get an authentic exposure and practice to the language. This real-life practice is always centered around the topic-specific language that is going to be introduced in each lesson. We have the guided and speaking writing tasks. We saw inside the teacher's books the extra support that we can give to the students in terms of the mind maps and the suggested answers at the same time. And of course, career paths is accompanied by the Express Digibook application that gives digital access to the platform at any time, any place, as well as the downloadable audios that you can find from Teacher's Corner at the same time. So a wide range of printed and digital material that bring this course to life and help you to engage even further with your ESP learners inside the classroom. So I'd like to thank you very much for watching today's presentation. If you want to find out more about our Express publishing company, if you want to find out more about our career paths titles, you can actually visit our Teacher's Corner website. This is where you can find the audios. You can also find here the leaflets, the digital leaflets for career paths for further information. You can also visit our website at www.expresspublishing.co.uk. There you can find the full range of our career paths titles with sample pages that can be downloaded from the site as well. And you can find out a little bit more about what we have to offer with this course. And of course, if you want to find out more about the products themselves, if you want to acquire the products, you can always contact your local distributor as well. So thank you again for listening today, and we wish you from Express Publishing all the best for the academic year ahead, and we hope to see you very soon.